Hello, it's Friday. This is Medusa Was Framed, and my name is Joyce. And this may be my quickest video ever. And some of you will appreciate that because mine usually last over an hour. I was over on this part of town today, and I thought that I would make a detour and run past this church, the Moultrie Church, and the little tiny Wildwood Cemetery, and just take some pictures. And the church is no longer active. It's only used for special occasions. I just very quickly walked around the grounds and took some pictures. And I have a little bit of talking to do, not much. Mostly, I'm just going to let you enjoy the pictures. So here we go. Let me put this on slideshow. So the Moultrie Church and Wildwood Cemetery are located at 480 Wildwood Drive in the part of St. Augustine that's considered South St. Augustine. It's currently maintained by the Hagen Wildwood Restoration Society and the Booth Cheshire Restoration Societies. This church was long ago referred to as God's Little Acre. It was built in 1877 and was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2014. The Hagen Wildwood Restoration Society has been taking care of it for the last 20 years. There are a great many Hagen ancestors buried there. It was originally built as a Southern Methodist church, then it became non-denominational and Catholic. And then as time changed and attendance dwindled, it became just something that was used for special occasions. Mr. and Mrs. Tyndall, for whom there are Tyndall ancestors laid to rest there, began caring for the grounds in 2004 and then turned it over to the restoration associations after that. So I didn't do any research on any of these people. I just very quickly walked around and snapped some shots. I'm going to let things get to another point, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I see. A lot of damage there, obviously. The cemetery is on not a main thoroughfare, but a street that can be very busy, going to an area that has a lot of housing developments back on Moultrie Creek, a very historical part of St. Augustine. And it sits back from the road a bit. There's a chain link fence around it and a gate that has no lock. In fact, it was interesting when I was there taking pictures, someone pulled in and watched me very carefully from their car, getting out of the car with a very angry look on their face and sending me loathing as I walked to my own. Not quite sure what that was about, but anyway. A lot of military there, a lot of World War II, Korean War. Baby, first year of his life. Some family plots like that. Side view of the church there. I found that interesting. There are quite a few handwritten markers, as well as this is just hand-stamped markers, and WR, that's all that's left of that. Some more military shots. Pellissier, very big name in St. Augustine, of the original Menorcan families that came, another baby passing away, that came and helped build the city we now enjoy. posts marking a family plot there. So there, I don't know if you can tell, but those are shells, big shells, which I learned after walking around the San Sebastian cemetery, the two abandoned cemeteries over in West St. Augustine, that it's very traditional for Caribbean and African traditions to place shells on where people are laid to rest instead of flowers, as we traditionally do, or as in the Jewish tradition, they place a stone of some sort. So there are a lot of shells there. And this was a sad spot in that there was an unevenness in the ground, and there was no stone, but all the shells were gathered on top of it. So I can only imagine that that's that family's way of marking that place. The Booth family there. Isn't that lovely? Just beautiful. And look at all the shells. Beautiful. There are a lot of shells, of various kinds of shells in this cemetery. I love that. Gone fishing, bless his heart. And unfortunately, there are some that are completely, you see, overrun that way. But, and there's the church. Isn't that just beautiful? There's a picture coming up that I took from an online resource that showed it back without a date, but back before it had been restored to this glory. But that's about it. I mean, there isn't much more to the cemetery than that. Another thing that I love about it is it backs up completely into the woods. And once that person was sitting in the parking lot watching me, I didn't want to go exploring in the woods at all. Normally I would have, but I just, whatever I was doing that was upsetting that person, how dare I walk on their ancestors' place of rest or whatever it was. I just wanted to get out. Military. Isn't that a lovely stone? And a single stone there. There's more than one place where the stones are on the boundary of the cemetery into the wooded area, and the wood has kind of taken over. Another military stone. That one, I still couldn't read it, but I would imagine that it's quite old, simply because whatever was on the stone has become illegible, and they went back and used the sticky on things. So that's the old photo that I was talking about, and I don't know when that was taken, but clearly there's been a great deal of restoration. Perhaps this is when the Hagen Wildwood Restoration Association took over, but regardless, thank you, good job. See, big difference there. Big difference indeed. Okay, so we're starting over. So when you walk in, that's what you see. And there's a family enclosure. Again, as in with the San Sebastian over in West St. Augustine that's abandoned, there was a lot of relationship between trees and headstones. Again, I learned that in African and Caribbean cultures, it's traditional to plant a bush or a tree at a resting place. So that would make me think that perhaps that person is of that ancestry. Little enclosure there. That's an example, unfortunately, of stones that have become both illegible and crumbled, but you see there's a piece of post in there. And I don't know if you can see this. This is an area where there were 3 stones, 3 markers that were on the periphery, and the forest has taken over a bit. But they put like a, what do you call this thing? You know, you put it in front of a fireplace there at the head of it, and it's covered in the big nautilus shells that would indicate African or Caribbean ancestry. And then it's absolutely covered. They absolutely created a mound of shells around it. I tried to use the filter on the phone that would catch that the best, but I was literally standing on a shell mound. I mean, they came in, they must have come in with wheelbarrows. Just beautiful. It was very powerful for me to stand here because of that, actually. Great deal of love and honor for that individual. And that is one of the stones in the family that is back. The woods and the bushes and everything have grown over part of that. Here's another example of 3 nautilus shells. Can't really read the stone. Is that 1889? Past 19? I don't know what. And there were a lot of markers like this. Now, keeping in mind that 1800s and before, markers were usually wood. So, of course, there's no date on here at all, just a name. But when I see something like this, that's the first thing I think of, that there was a record somewhere of this internment, and the wood had obviously deteriorated. And instead, what was placed there is some kind of marker that won't deteriorate. And there unfortunately are a lot of those in this cemetery. This is, I tend to believe that in this case, what we're looking at is the stone that marks the foot. So this is the headstone and the footstone. I'm not sure. It was about the right placement for that at the Catholic cemetery at Nombre de Dios, Our Lady of la Leche. Most of the places have both a headstone and a footstone. And again, this was a Catholic church for a while. So I don't know if there's a relationship there or not, but I'm not sure, but I think that's what that is. And here we have another nautilus shell, one here, and passed away 1884, looks like. So there you're seeing up on the back of the church, and 2 lovely old stones. Once again, we've got a nice nautilus shell there. That's all that's left of that marker. And a military stone right in line with the window of the church. 3 years old. Lovely old stones. Handwritten stone, quite a few of those as well. Another handwritten stone. Another handwritten stone. Seeing more and more of these. So I don't believe this was a coincidence. I believe that this tree was related to this placement. Again, mentioning the African and Caribbean tradition to mark the gravesite with a tree for eternal life. You see there is the temporary marker there. Now this struck me as very sad, knowing what I have come to learn about the placement of trees in African traditional cemeteries. To see a tree cut down in an older cemetery actually is very disturbing to me, because it's not just a tree, it's actually the relationship of that tree with that family and that soul. So this tree was cut down, and what was placed on top of it were these little buckets with dirt and dried flowers and leaves and messages on there with the family name. So I think, I hate to say it, I think that this tree had something to do with an internment there that was cut down. So it looks like a pretty old tree. Um, anyway, it just kind of took my breath away with sadness. And here we have another one. Clearly there's a relationship between the placement of this stone and this tree. That cypress very well might have been there, but this is an old stone, WN, that's all we know. And this tree, there's another angle of that. I believe that was the tree for those two. And I think that's where we started crumbling stones. Too many of those where they've broken, and at least the pieces are held together. Interesting, you see the rebar in there, at least on the foundation. That's where we started, and I'll just let that go. There again, you see the shells here for this individual, the nautilus shells, which would indicate African origins, and then a midden of shells and stones. And I love the solar light. That's lovely. Again, stones, so probably a person of African origin. Whole family there within an enclosure, and the palm that's planted there. The shell for that internment. Can't read those, don't know who they mark. That's all that's left of that one. Whole family there. Lovely shot of the church and the street. Other angle of that entire family. Unknown, the one unknown that I saw there. Look at, I love all that. How lovely and beautiful that is. So much care. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Again, the infant that didn't live a year. I love the personalization of this. You know, the stone is gone, but they keep the spirit alive. Side shot of the church. More and more, I'm seeing more and more of these handmade stones, which I actually really appreciate. I think I appreciate those more. Now, there were some very, very snazzy stones, very, very snazzy stones, but I didn't take pictures of the snazzy ones. They don't impress me much. I appreciate the craftsmanship, but I like the simple stuff better. I just think that that's beautiful with that fountain. Just letting them go. Again, we come to the nautilus shells. Quick one. And I ended with the lovely angel. So just a quick one. Wanted to shout that out really quick. Thanks for watching quickly. And this is Medusa Was Framed, saying see you next time.